The year was 2001. America, the historic superpower, with all its pride and state-of-the-art military might, launched an invasion of the sacred land of Afghanistan. Their mission was named Operation Enduring Freedom, a name that concealed a ruthless plan of aggression. Their objective was clear: to capture Osama bin Laden and wipe al-Qaeda and the Taliban from the face of the earth. They thought that in the face of the world's most advanced technology, satellites, fighter jets, and trained special forces, a weak group like the Taliban would be crushed to dust within weeks. But the American forces did not know they were about to face an adversary whose motivation to fight was entirely different from that of a conventional army, and whose ideological conviction was incredibly strong. That brief mission turned into a bloody and asymmetric war that would last for 20 long years. At the start of the war, the skies of Afghanistan trembled with the deafening roar of America's most advanced fighter jets, bombers, and cruise missiles. U.S. forces began hunting down and destroying Taliban training camps, communication centers, and secret hideouts. Simultaneously, CIA officers and U.S. Special Forces commandos secretly entered Afghan territory. They carried bags stuffed with cash to buy secret information about the Taliban by tempting the locals with money. They joined forces with the anti-Taliban Northern Alliance and supplied them with modern weapons. In this combined assault, major cities like Kabul, Kandahar, and Herat fell from the Taliban's grasp. In many places, the Taliban fighters retreated, leaving their tanks and weapons behind. American soldiers began to celebrate, thinking the war was nearly over. But this was the calm before the storm. The Taliban fighters had not vanished. They had merely withdrawn from direct confrontation to initiate a long-term plan. They knew it was impossible to win a technological battle, so they returned to their most trusted friend, the rugged mountains of Afghanistan. The towering peaks and countless caves of Tora Bora, near the Pakistani border, became their new fortress. It was from here that they planned a guerrilla war that would rob American soldiers of their sleep for the next 20 years. They blended into villages dressed as ordinary Afghans, hid in mountain caves, and launched surprise attacks on the occupying forces whenever the opportunity arose. In 2002, in the high-altitude Shah-e-Kot Valley of Paktia and Host provinces, the Americans launched their first major ground offensive, named Operation Anaconda. They believed they had surrounded nearly 1,000 Taliban and al-Qaeda fighters. But they didn't know that they had walked into a death trap. Hidden in sturdy, Soviet-era bunkers atop the mountains, the Mujahideen waited for the American soldiers to enter the valley. Then, from above, they unleashed a rain of rockets and machine gun fire. Amidst the bitter cold, dense fog, and heavy snowfall, the American soldiers were thrown into disarray. Their helicopters, arriving to provide support, were shot down like toys by machine gun fire. In the 2-week-long battle, the Americans realized for the first time the limitations of their modern technology. After this, the Taliban made their combat tactics even deadlier. Starting around 2004, they began using improvised explosive devices, or IEDs. These homemade bombs, crafted from ordinary pressure cookers, plastic containers, and abandoned artillery shells, became death itself for American armored vehicles. They hid them under rocks on the roadside, and even inside animal carcasses, detonating them with mobile phones or simple pressure plates. America's powerful Humvees were blown to pieces by these blasts. The greatest irony was that it was the CIA that had taught the Mujahideen IED-making techniques in the 1980s to fight against the Soviet Union. From 2006, the Taliban added a new dimension to their strategy, one they adopted from insurgent groups in Iraq: suicide bombing. This tactic was technologically difficult to counter because, alongside the explosive, it weaponized the attacker's will to die for their cause. Attacks on American convoys with explosive-laden vehicles or detonating bombs in the middle of a crowd of soldiers completely shattered the Americans' morale. They began to view even ordinary Afghans with suspicion. But their greatest psychological blow was yet to come. The Americans were trying to train the Afghan army and police to stand on their own feet to fight the Taliban. They ate together, shared stories, and planned missions. But Taliban fighters secretly infiltrated their ranks, wearing Afghan army and police uniforms. They trained with the Americans, earned their trust, and then, at the right moment, turned their weapons on them. These insider attacks terrified the Americans so much that they were forced to hold their rifles in one hand, even while resting or in meetings. In October 2009, on a secret U.S. base in Nuristan province, about 300 Taliban fighters launched a coordinated attack and burned everything to the ground. For the Americans, there was only one question: who gave away the location of their secret base? The years 2009 and 2011 were the bloodiest for the Americans, during which they lost nearly 1,000 soldiers. In 2011, the Taliban shot down a Chinook helicopter carrying 22 commandos from the famed SEAL Team 6, the very unit that had killed Osama bin Laden just 3 months earlier. This incident was a major victory for them. American soldiers were slowly becoming demoralized. They would risk their lives to capture a village, only to see it fall back into Taliban hands the next month. They grew weary of this meaningless, bloody cycle. Finally, after 20 long years, the loss of thousands of soldiers' lives, and the expenditure of nearly $3.7 trillion, America admitted defeat in its longest-running war. As they departed with their heads down from Kabul airport in 2021, a suicide attacker delivered a final blow, killing 13 U.S. service members. This victory was a prime example of asymmetric warfare. It proved that even a technologically weaker force, if ideologically united and employing the right strategies, can endure against a superpower. For the Taliban, this victory was the ultimate success of their ideology, which had inspired them to continue their 20-year-long struggle.